Hello, medical billing and coding students. I am Veronica Hodges, your instructor. Today I will give you a brief overview of ICD-9-CM. What is ICD-9-CM? It is the International Classification of Diseases 9th Revision Clinical Modification. In other words, your ICD-9 manual is full of diagnosis codes. Here are special notes that I would like for you to take heed or take note of. There are 3 tables in your ICD-9 manual. You have the table of drugs and chemicals, which start on page 523. You have the table of neoplasms and the hypertension table. Please remember that your table of drugs and chemicals contains a classification of drugs or chemicals that identify poisonings in the state and the external cause of the adverse effects. Also note that there are 17 chapters in your ICD-9 manual. If you take a look at page 3 in your ICD-9 manual, you will see that that particular page gives you an overview of the guidelines in each chapter. So again, turn to page 3 in your ICD-9 manual and look at C. C starts the chapter-specific coding guidelines. Each chapter is listed and the code range. For example, Chapter 1, Infectious and Parasitic Diseases. The code range is listed as 001 through 139, and we will talk about that in just a moment as well. I would like for you to also know that there are 3 volumes in your ICD-9 manual. You have Volume 1, which is your tabular list, Volume 2, which is the alphabetic index, and Volume 3, which are your inpatient procedures. Keep in mind that Volume 1 is not at the beginning of the book. The tabular list is actually in the middle. Volume 2 is in the beginning, and Volume 3 is at the end of your ICD-9 manual. Here are a few other notes I would like for you to take note of. There are category codes, subcategory codes, and subclassification codes. As you can see, I'm using diabetes as an example. 250 is just diabetes. Usually if there are subclassification codes which require a 5th digit, you cannot code just a 3-digit code. 250.0 is diabetes without mention of complication, which is considered a subcategory code. Diabetes without mention of complication type 2, unspecified type, not stated as uncontrolled, is considered a subclassification code. So here again, category codes are 3 digits, subcategory codes are 4 digits, and subclassification codes are 5 digits. And remember that each digit is usually added when there is specificity involved. When there are specific things that should be coded, you should always look for category, subcategory, or subclassification. Now let's get your ICD-9 manuals and let's code. I am using the 2014 ICD-9 manual for hospitals, and it's written by Carol Buck and approved by the AMA. As I mentioned, there are 17 chapters in the ICD-9 manual, and each chapter coincides with the tabular section. So you have your Chapter 1, like I mentioned earlier, the infectious and parasitic diseases. You have Chapter 2, which is the neoplasms, contains the neoplasms. Chapter 3, which contains the endocrine, nutritional and metabolic diseases and immunity disorders. The code range for that is 240 through 279. Also, you have your Chapter 4, Chapter 5, Chapter 6, and there are other chapters. So take a look at this page as well. It has all the other chapters. I want to bring your attention to V codes and E codes. You have your V codes and you have your E codes. V codes are pretty much a classification of factors influencing health status and contact with health services, and that's V01 through V91. And you also have E codes, which are supplemental classification of external causes of injury and poisoning, and that's E800 through E99. Now, let's go through coding steps for ICD-9. Number 1, you must always identify the main term. So let's look at diaper rash for an example. Diaper rash. Rash is the main term. It is the term that remains constant, and diaper describes rash. So, with that said, you would search for the term in the alphabetic index, which is volume 2. Remember that volume 2 is in the beginning of the ICD-9 manual, and it starts on page 86. So you would look for rash. After you find rash, look for diaper and locate your code. Once you locate the code, you would search for the code in the tabular section. The tabular section starts on page 669 in your ICD-9 manual, and the codes are located in the tabular section by numerical order. You will then reference the code in the tabular section to ensure that you've selected the right code. So the main term is rash. Look up rash. Rash is located on page 446 in your ICD-9 manual in the alphabetic index, and you will find that the code for diaper rash is 691.0. You will then turn to the tabular section and look for 691.0. Please keep in mind that in the tabular section, the code ranges are listed at the top of the page in red writing, so you can find the codes in the tabular section in numerical order at the top of the page. Okay, and 691.0 is found on page 892. And once you reference the code in a tabular section, then you can select the correct code. Now, I've given some examples here on the alphabetic index. So the alphabetic index here again is at the beginning of your book, and it's located on page 86, and it gives all of the terms in alphabetical order. Your tabular section here again gives you your codes, the code descriptions, but it's in numerical order. So with that being said, I need for you to follow the steps to find or select the appropriate code. Remember, there are 3 important tables located in the ICD-9 manual. Also, know how to find a code in the alphabetic index and reference the tabular. And I need for you to understand the difference between a category code, a subcategory code, and a subclassification code. If you have any questions, please note that I can be reached at vhodges@studymedical, vhodgesmedicalbillingandcoding@gmail.com, 406-359-1862, or 980-819-0865. And I want you to stay tuned. I'm actually going to post more videos. The next videos that I will post will be advanced ICD-9 coding, CPT overview, that's your procedural codes, advanced CPT, basic evaluation and management coding, and understanding HCPCS coding. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. I want you to have a great day and code, code, code.